Welcome to ProductTank. So I don't know, maybe if the guys in the back could just give me a little wave when we're actually live. That'd be great. Are we actually live now? Hey, we're connected to Sydney and Melbourne tonight, and welcome to everyone who's there and also dialed in from different places, London and all the around the world and stuff. And also special greeting to our organizers in the other locations. Ben and Marco, they're in Sydney. And also Meg and Emily, they're in Melbourne. It's great. You guys are doing a great job. So, as our slide says, ProductTank is a community for product people by product people. And that's people who are designing and defining product. We're founded back in 2010 in London. And now our meetups span over 175 cities globally. So our mission is to provide inspiring content and supportive community for everyone here. Product designers, product definers, product owners, managers, all sorts of people like that. I'm Jace Clamp, and I work for Mind the Product, and that's the organization that founded ProductTank back there in London some years ago. So I manage 30 ProductTank cities throughout the Asia Pacific region, just, Singapore, Jakarta, New Zealand, and so forth. So we're excited to have you at our first sort of live multi-city event. It's quite a thing for us, linking up. We realized we had a pretty zinger of a topic back when we had World Product Day back in May. And we really wanted to kind of harness that and get everyone back together, link up, and create some conversation around this topic. So we did a live stream from London to Perth back in May as well, which was good. So it's our goal to basically get really great speakers, like product speakers, into remote places, like I said, like Jakarta and Myanmar, and even places as remote as Wellington, New Zealand. So, so tonight we'll have some Q&A as well. So what I'd like you to do is dial up on your phone. We're going to use Slido. It's really easy to use. So all you got to do is just go on your mobile browser to sli.do and put in the hashtag ProductTank. And then you'll be able to plug in your questions all throughout the talk this evening. And then we're going to have a bit of Q&A at the end and try and pull the best questions from that possible. As our events are always free, we depend on the generous support of our sponsors. So tonight we'd like to thank Optimizely for sponsoring the live streaming for our event. Optimizely is the world's leading experimentation platform that unites product marketing and growth teams in running tests, learning, and deploying winning digital experiences every day. So if you'd like to create alignment in your organization based on actual testing and data and results, it's certainly worth checking out, and it's relevant to our topic tonight. So in a moment, it's going to be my pleasure to invite up Liam, who's the head of product for Flaik, a global ski school platform based here in Brisbane. Liam, like I said, he spoke at World Product Day, and we realized we had quite a candid topic that confronts how to align design and organizational objectives. As a consultant, which is my day job, product consulting, I find it to be a very relevant topic that a lot of organizations are struggling with right now. So we're very keen to create conversation around that. So after Liam's talk, like I said, we'll do some Q&A. Sydney actually is blessed to have Asa Shakar from Optimizely, who's come in from the States. So he's going to give talk number 2 there, also extending on that this topic tonight. Unfortunately, we couldn't organize like a video crew to be there to stream his talk here and everywhere else because it was too complicated. But he did a talk in San Francisco at our ProductTank there a few months ago, which was really awesome. So he came highly recommended. But hopefully maybe someone down there could whip out your smartphone when he gets up to talk and record that and share that so we can see that as well. So let me switch pages here. Also, Sydney's going to drop off at that time after we do a bit of Q&A, but we're going to stay on with Melbourne, and we're going to invite Nick Coster from BrainMates in Sydney to join us as well. I was really excited to hear that he would be in town, so I kind of begged him, please come and join us, give us your thoughts on this topic. And Jason Turnbull, who's a product consultant here in Brisbane, will also give some further comments on the topic, which I'll introduce those guys a bit more when we get to that. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Liam up. Everyone across all our locations, if you want to give him a hand as he comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just switch this guy right here. Cool. Hi. I've never had so many cameras and eyeballs, virtual and actual, at me at the same time, so that's pretty cool. But I'm excited that I do get this opportunity because I'm going to make an annoying sound with the microphone. I'm going to fix that up. It's a topic I care a lot about because I think design has got a lot to contribute to the world. And I also think that sometimes we misuse that power. And I'm really passionate about creativity and design making an impact and a positive impact. And so that's what I'm hoping to inspire a conversation about. I'm really hoping to have an honest conversation about the difficulties and the challenges, and not just the bullshit version where I stand up here and talk about how great design is and how amazing I do design or something like that, which is probably 95% of talks. So I'm Liam, and this is what we're about. So the goal here is to promote better management of design process, or better management of design, and better integration of design strategy. And hopefully what that means is more progress and less power games. So I'm not here to do Design 101. I'm not here to evangelize about design thinking or any of that stuff. I'm here to talk about how we use that power better. So here's the agenda. So I'm going to talk a bit of background about where I'm coming from. And I've got a pretty strong point of view. So why do I have a strong point of view, and what is that point of view? And so what are some of the design process challenges that people that I've seen have fallen into over time? And then talking about what does this even mean, design-led? We talk about this, people want to have a design-led business. Why? What does that even mean? So, and some ego traps that come up around that. And then how do we better align design strategy with competitive strategy? Because if the design strategy is going that way, the competitive strategy is going that way, nobody's going anywhere. A couple of quick case studies, and then we're going to have Q&A. So, bit of background. I'm going to go through this fast. So stop me if I'm going too fast, and we'll have questions at the end. So bit of background about where I'm coming from. I've got kind of two personalities here. One is somebody who's being a product manager, has been a design strategist, being a consultant and a business person, and the other person who's spent a lot of time in personal growth and mental health and dealing with wrestling ego. So I want to bring ego into the room because ego is always in the room. So I want to start with New Zealand because in many respects they've been smarter than us when it comes to design, and we've ignored them. So here's why I think that. So a while back they had some of this going on about the early 2000s. So they were dropping down out of the OECD, and they were worried about that. That was going to affect everyone's quality of life. So they thought that's a problem. They identified design as one of a number of things. When I say they, I mean the government. Identified design as a number of things that could restore them back up into the OECD. They created this program, which eventually became called Better by Design. That was the purpose of the program. It was not about designers. It was about mainstream business being more competitive by design. So here were some of the goals. So it was a very commercially driven program. Big goals, 5 years, 50 companies, 5 times GDP, $500,000 in additional export revenue. Very commercially driven goals. Here are some of the results from a few years ago. This program would be going on 20 years now, so it's not a new thing. Here are some of the people that were the architects of the program that I was fortunate to work with. I'm not a Kiwi, I just got to work with some smart Kiwis. So who you're looking at here is Ray LeBone, Peter Haythornthwaite, Andrew Jones, and Stephanie Pietkiewicz. I'm going to butcher her name, sorry Steph. What you got there is Order of New Zealand level brand and graphic design, Order of New Zealand level industrial design, so worked under Henry Dreyfus, largest brand identity consultancy in Australasia, 120 staff. So they're the gurus. They're the people where if you're a designer and they walk in the room, you shit your pants because they're better than you in every way. So I got to, through pure chance, work with them for a while and do a completely naive, ignorant, lucky kind of apprenticeship and learn about their wisdom on how to integrate design with business so it actually makes a difference. That was when I was working for the government. So my role there was to try to find a way to make the Queensland economy grow and Queensland manufacturing businesses in particular be more competitive through design. So my job was steal from the Kiwis with their help and make Queensland better as a result. So I did that for 4 years. Then I was lucky enough to escape from the government and join some very great people, design consultancies here in Brisbane. Joseph Mark, I'm going to point out the Viking up the back there, Ben, who's not tried to hide, who still manages to talk to me after having been my boss for 4 years. And so Joseph Mark, digital product and brand, and CMD, which is industrial design. So across the spectrum there, you're looking at clients from, you're looking at like the future of music and video and things like that, and like software entrepreneurs through to Virgin and hardware and blowing stuff up in mines. So it was quite a broad mix of clients I was kind of exposed to there. After 3 or 4 years of being a consultant, I just wanted to build. I didn't want to hand over and then not have accountability to get to see something grow. So I got the opportunity to join Flaik. So Flaik, I'll tell you a bit more about Flaik later. Point is, I'm 4 years there as head of product and brand for a company that we do technology for ski schools in North America, hardware and software. So that's where I'm coming from. So here's the point of view. So there's some hard truths that some designers need to confront and own, and other people need to know if they're going to manage designers better. Because universities are doing a shit job of educating designers. So that's what I've observed, and that's what I've heard from industry all over the place. If you're a graduate, you're almost unemployable across most disciplines. Do I have any vested interest in universities? No. Am I about to get a job at university? No. That's the truth. So if you're an industrial designer, you do not come out with job-ready skills. If you're a graphic designer, you do not come out with job-ready skills. Ask any consultancy, they know that's the truth. And so we have designers that are coming out thinking that their job is self-expression. That's not their job. That's an artist's job. Your job as a designer is to solve problems. If you've hired a designer who thinks that they're there to self-express, you've got yourself an artist. You need to fire them and get a designer. Here's another thing that goes on. So this is Richard Saul, who architect, graphic designer, also founded the TED conference. You've probably heard of that. I think this is a great quote. The God of looking good versus the God of being good. Which one are you worshipping as a designer? And I say this with love. It's tough love, but it's love. Here's some words that we throw around, some terms, right? There's all of the traditional design disciplines. I've mentioned some of them. There's design thinking, which is no quick way to sum up except it's about the worship of post-it notes. So design-led innovation. Yeah. I'm a supporter and a critic at the same time. So design-led innovation, that's about the role of design in an innovation process, and we'll get to that later. Design integration is about the role of design in competitive strategy. That's all well and good, but to be honest, when I hear a lot of this, sometimes I just go, awkward. These terms, they have their place. They have their place. They're useful to educate people on the distinctions between different concepts. But they end up becoming the end of themselves. People want to be a design thinker because they want to be a design thinker, and they want to be design integrated because they want to be design integrated. They want to have design in business because they want to have design in business. It's a big circular process, and it doesn't serve anyone except themselves. So it's actually quite a clever joke when you think about it. Design should be a team sport. This is the part where I'm a wanker, and I say that, this is kind of part of my attitude about anything, is use what works. Don't be a slave to any given dogma. So moving on from my soapbox part, so design process challenges. So this is the UK's double diamond design, say that again, UK Design Council's double diamond. Probably you've seen that before. This won't be new. It's been around for a very long time. It's a very generic description of the design process, which is why I'm bringing it up, because it's very simple. So 4 stages, I'm not going to go into much detail. On the left side, you're defining the problem. On the right side, you're designing the solution. You're diverging to discover the problem. You're converging to define the problem. You're diverging to ideate and come up with stuff. You're converging to figure out what the right solution is. There's a bit of detail there. There's a bit of build, test, iterate at the back. I think you get the point. This is some of the ways that that design process goes wrong. And this is some of the ways that I've seen this process get abused. So design ignorance, this is the part where you don't actually define the problem at all. You just go, sweet, I'm going to jump straight into the creative part and design some stuff. And so you're completely ignorant of the problem that you're solving. This is the opposite, where design is actually impotent because you've spent all of your time defining a problem and none of your time doing anything about it. This is also a very common problem because we've got a whole bunch of people who think that they're designers and they're not. A whole bunch of people who are accountants who read a book and love post-it notes. And so if you cannot translate your idea from the first diamond into the second, you are not a designer. You have no business calling yourself a designer. If you do not have the ability to take concept and translate it into a product, a service, a space, or some kind of differentiated offering, you're not a designer. You might be very creative, you might be super innovative, you might be very smart, you might add a lot of value, but you're not a designer. And it's important we recognize that because otherwise we're not going to really add any value. You don't get paid for ideas, you get paid for execution. So this is the perfectionist. This is the one where you think, oh geez, I've got to do everything in every stage perfectly to all levels. This is a trap. You're never going to get there. You probably really struggle with this expectation. It's not a great place to put yourself up against and build a culture around. This is a recipe for burnout and hating each other. Why? So why is this not a good thing to do? Because it's completely unrealistic. This is data from New Zealand. This is about the number of people who are actually employed in each one of those stages. So what you're seeing here is not very many people in the first diamond, loads of people in the second diamond. Okay, so that's, you can argue that you should even that out and maybe there should be more people in the front. You might be right. I don't have an opinion. That's just the data. I'm just looking for the best data that we have. This might be entirely appropriate. If you're building a skyscraper, how many architects do you need versus how many engineers and construction workers? Now, so I don't have much more of an opinion about it. That's just the truth. I think it's probably we should recognize that. Here's some other things that we do wrong. So this is every designer loves to moan about this because it sucks. And this is the part where you just go, look, I know you think you're all fancy and whatever, but just take this steaming pile and polish it up, please, and make it look a bit pretty or whatever, and then ship it. It's like, oh, gee, thanks, I really feel valued, and I really feel like this is going to work. So we've all done it. I've done it. I didn't like myself very much when I did it, but we've all done it. This is another version, the post-it crack addict. So we've all done this too. So the point here is not going, it's not a gotcha. It's not like you're the post-it crack addict. This is about recognizing that we all fall into these traps, and they're traps, and you can fall into them, but you've got to have some awareness to go, fuck, I'm a post-it crack addict right now. I'm going nowhere. I need to stop. Okay, so it's about awareness. So here's another one. So yeah, I have worked in government, and so I say this with love and respect with the constraints of government. And if you're trying to innovate in government, it often looks like this. You have a lot of post-it notes and stuff and a lot of workshops. Really good at workshops if you're in government, and stakeholder engagement, which is another. I'm not going to go any further. So a lot of workshops, and then not a lot of actually figuring out what's the right problem to solve. Just as long as you do something and the Courier Mail's cool with that, then you're good. and then do a lot more workshops and have lots of brainstorms and public engagement and stuff like that, but not actually turn any of them into anything and deliver anything ever, because the election's going to come around, so who cares anyway. And this one's a fun one. So this was what happens when the designers get sick of lipstick on a pig, and they go, screw you, client, I'm going to go up this other end here. I'm going to do strategy out the wahoo. I'm going to do so many strategy workshops you don't even know. And then they're going to go, right, thanks, Mr. Client. Now that I've bamboozled you with my creative workshopy things, and you're out of the room, thanks very much. Now I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to do very little brainstorming and ideation, because I actually think that I know already what to do because I'm so smart. And then I'm going to spend all my time polishing my pixels. So that's a trap. That's very common. Here's one that's for real in Flaik. This is also a trap. So this does happen. It sucks when it happens, but it happens. And so this is the part where it's like, we're a seasonal business. It's ski schools, North America. So winter is coming, and when winter is coming, Liam is freaking out. So I need to get stuff done fast, and sometimes I shortcut the process, and sometimes that ends up in this part where everybody hates Liam because he's not even as smart as he thought he was, and he was totally wrong. And now we've got to fix all the things, and the devs hate Liam, and everybody hates Liam, and blah. I want to flip back here a second and recognize a hidden truth here, which is, why would Liam shortcut that process? One, because Liam's having an ego moment and he's full of himself and he thinks he knows better than everyone. And sometimes, two, Liam's full-time job is to have more empathy and more understanding of the customer than anyone else in the room. So if I have that deep immersion and knowledge and expertise, sometimes I can shortcut the process based upon education, based upon experience, based upon deep knowledge and expertise and process. So that's me giving myself 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but it is true. Sometimes you can get away with it if you actually do know what you're talking about. But you walk a real fine line, because this sucks. So that's the honest truth from my experience. And it's not terribly scalable to have individuals have to make that call, but if you're in a small business, sometimes you have to. So what I'm saying is there's no perfect process. I don't believe in perfection. Anyway, so this is what it looks like at Flaik when we're doing stuff fairly well by our standards. So, you know, we might spend a bit of time in the field and do our UX research, engage with the customers, things like that, get a good understanding of where it's at. Then we might kind of go, look, we have a fair bit of understanding of ski schools, and based upon that and what we've seen, we're going to narrow in fairly quickly because we don't have a lot of time. And then we might, if we're being good, we might have a couple of weeks to actually scope out and wireframe prototype something and go, okay, could be this concept, could be that concept, let's do some feedback from customers and so on. And then quickly after that, we're going to lock down and spend most of our time in a fairly iterative process between like finished design, polishing design, and development. So that's what it looks like when we're doing something good. There's no perfect, at least not for us. And usually, this is when winter is over and the pressure is off. So I don't have the answer to this question because it's completely dependent on your business and your situation. There's no magic formula. So these are the questions that you need to ask to figure it out for yourself, what the right balance is for you. And that could change depending on the project. So what kind of business do you want to be? What do you need in your business right now? And how does this feature and project relate to that need? Whether that be a commercial need, a customer need, a cash flow need, a brand need. There's all kinds of different needs. So they drive what process you should be following. The point here is about ego traps. Don't get stuck in a purist point of view. So let's elevate past process and talk about this thing called design-led business, which I've heard people talk about. And I feel like people generally want to be design-led business because it sounds cool. That's my honest assessment. Or it sounds cool in like Fast Company or whatever, or the designers have been in the ear. There's not necessarily thought through or not even a clear definition of what that is. So here is a definition from the chairman of the Better by Design program, who is also the CEO of a company called Icebreaker, who are about 200, I think they're about 200 million revenue. They do outdoor adventure clothing out of New Zealand. The point, he's got a definition here about a production-led business. So you're building what you can. So if you're in a manufacturing business, for example, you're kind of defined by your tooling. You build what you can because it's too expensive to do anything else. If you're in a marketing-led business, then you're analysing what is, you're doing focus groups, all that kind of stuff, and you're just delivering what they say. He's defining a design-led business as when you're taking an intuitive leap and you're giving people something that they haven't thought of. Okay? We'll get into that a bit more, but there's a starting point. So you're dealing with latent needs, so needs that are hidden. It's not customer says, hey, I want this. It's what's hidden under that. An emerging need, so things that are coming based upon social or technology trends. And then it's about actual product differentiation in the product, service, experience space. So it's not perceived or marketed differentiation, it's actual differentiation over price. So what often is going to come up here is this is the part where someone's going to show you a ladder. And we are here on the ladder and we need to be at the top of the ladder. Why? Every discipline has some kind of capability ladder, whether it's design, marketing, engineering, everyone has some kind of capability ladder. We're not that creative with capability, it seems. So this is the Danish one. There's a top, there's a middle, and there's a bottom. I'm not even going to bother. Here's the Envision one. So here's what Envision says, they got some data. This is one that we made. So we made a ladder in my program. It's quite similar. Ours is more curvy though. So that makes better differentiation. This is a trap. This is a total ego trap. Everyone just wants to get to the top. It's designed that way. We designed it that way. We were trying to inspire people to join the program. This is a subtle dig at you're not enough. You're not enough, therefore you should want to be more. Why? I don't know. Doesn't matter. So why should you want to be design-led? Because all of these other models work perfectly fine. Red Bull, they've got a huge business out of, don't they make drinks? Because it doesn't seem like they make drinks. They've got a huge brand that does all kinds of crazy stuff, and they seem to be doing pretty good. Marketing, analysing what is, like we were talking about, analyse what is and then deliver to that. Lots of people, marketing is great. It does a lot of powerful stuff. Sales, so this is the part where the salesperson dominates, and the sales is eliciting the requirements and based upon the relationship, or they have to close a deal, there's cash flow, whatever. Sales, in order to do this, in order to hit cash flow, we have to do it. Fair enough. Sometimes you have to do that. Engineering led. So this is the part where the engineers, and they get really smart, they get in a room by themselves, and you keep them with the mushrooms and you feed them and you don't let them see light, and then they come up with something magical, like some magical technology box. Changes the world. And then don't worry about the people as long as the technology is good, but sometimes that works. There's plenty of examples where that really, really, really works. Data-led, I think in Sydney you've got a great talk about that. So data plays a huge role. Product-led, where you build everything into the product. Sales, marketing, everything is actually built in. The product sells itself. Slack is an example of that. So it's not about which one is better. But often what happens in this conversation is if I choose to be design-led for good reasons, this power game comes up. So does design-led mean designer-led? Are we then going to be led by designers? And that power game plays out at all levels of the business. It plays out in the teams, in the scrum, the UX person versus the BA versus the PO versus everyone else. No, we're design-led, so that means me, I'm the designer. Plays out at the executive level and plays out in whoever's at the top, which voice should I listen to most? So it plays out at all levels. It's a huge power game. It doesn't mean designer-led. Designers should not lead your business. It should be the person who should lead your business should be the person who's carrying the risk and the responsibility and the biggest and most holistic worldview. Design is just one worldview. You can have a holistic designer and they can lead a business. Airbnb is an example, but there's not designer-led. Wouldn't it be better to make decisions collaboratively? Yes, this sounds very, very nice. I like Disney too. This does not work. It doesn't work. This is communism. The problem is people. It just doesn't work. I've seen people try to make it work, and you know, I've spent time in quite a large organisation, very, very, very big, and they were really smart. Lots of good stuff. Lots of good people. You know, agile up the wazoo, so design-led, all these things. But they didn't have a clear, what the structure, the organisational structure was. You had a UX function, you had an engineering function, you had a this function, a sales function, a support function, all the different functions, silos. And then if I was in a scrum, I'm in a team, I'm the UX person, I report to the UX silo head. I also report to the people who lead my project. So I'm not clear on who I report to start with. And then at a project lead level, you've got all of these different voices and you've got no clear leader. What happens? Yelling at each other, politics, it's Machiavellian, it's crazy stuff. So that's what happens when you don't have a clear leader. You need a clear leader. And who should be the clear leader? That's up to you. So that's up to the skills that you have in the business, the kind of business that you want to be, what is your vision, what is your competitive strategy, what kind of people do you have, who is actually a good leader, who is holistic, should it be a designer? Maybe, but there's nothing inherently about a designer that says they should lead. So if we get past this and we go up into aligning with strategy, so this is the Design Management Institute, and this is how they talk about design management. So fair bit going on there. I just want to look at 1, 2, 3. So differentiating from the competition, designers are all about that all the time. Don't even need to talk about it. Managing and quality and consistency, designers love a component library, all right? Everyone's posting about their latest component library. Designers all over it, we get it. That first one doesn't get talked about very much. What is the role of design as a function, as a business capability? That's the one I want to talk about. So we talked loads about process, but we should be talking about competitive strategy. What is the market that we're going to choose to compete in, and how are we going to win? That then drives our positioning and our product strategy. Our organisational strategy is how we organise our people through a good process in order to win our competitive strategy. So we spend all our time in design talking about process. That's why nobody listens to you. So it is a powerful process. It's a great process. It's a great toy, but it's supposed to be used for something else. And this is the problem with design thinking and many of these programs, is that we're not talking about where we aim the process. So this is what it probably should be. We should be aiming that process at, that's a visual representation of what I just said, aiming the process at a particular chosen market segment. Good focus on specific end user needs, driven by good process equals love and money. Okay, that's the simple version. It's not that simple in real life, obviously. That's the words version. Focus equals deep understanding equals deep value. The greater your focus, the greater your understanding, the greater your value. You can't be everything to everyone, except if you want to do it really poorly. So in which market will we play and how will you win? So if you translate it into design speak, what that means is, who is the end user customer that I'm going to choose to design for, and what is what do they deeply need that only we can offer? So there's a lot in those questions. So, okay, so at Flaik, we do GPS tracking for kids on a ski school. So if they take a lesson, they don't get lost, right? So who is our user? Is it the kid? Is it the parent? Is it the instructor? Is it the supervisor? There's a lot of people there, and depending on who we prioritize, that leads to a very different business. Our truth is, who we care about is the instructor, and more than them, the managers of the business. We're just doing the minimum, because the kids, they're 4 years old, they're almost mute sometimes. They don't know what it is. You just tell them it's a magical robot. And as long as it doesn't get in the way, it's cool. So it's not about the kid. It's about the people being able to responsibly look after those kids. So that's our choice. What do they deeply need that only you can offer? Well, nobody else in our market even has GPS tracking, so that's kind of an easy one for us. And how much innovation do you actually need? Do you really need to go out and do something transformational and change the world? You can do that. It's incredibly risky. Or should you just build something that's new to you? Or should you just fix what you have and make some money from that? And there's no good, better, worse, nothing here. It's just what's going to work for you, what's going to work for your business. So I'm going to skip through this quickly. So here are some of the questions that you should be asking about your business. So how tightly defined is your niche around specific end user customers? Do you want to be the best in the world, or you just want to be in the world? Do you want to be creating and owning your own market, or do you just want to compete in somebody else's? Do you want to create your own intellectual property, or do you just want to find somewhere else and market and support it? And what is the core competency that you need in order to achieve that? There's no right or wrong here. It's just what are your decisions based upon your context. So there's a lot of, there was a huge hype trend for a while about design will save the world. It won't. Design won't even save your business, but it will make it much more powerful if it's lined up right, okay? Design is a powerful tool, and its power is proportional to your level of focus in your competitive strategy. Design will never be able to compensate for poor competitive strategy decisions, unless you just want a bit of lipstick on a pig. So the Kiwis, they did a great thing by calling their program what they did, Better by Design. Not transform the world by design, which was kind of what my program said, learnings. Just make it better. That's enough. Better is pretty good. So here's a couple of case studies of what I'm talking about. So just a reminder, so lining a design process up with a specific market segment. Here's a different way to think about that. So underneath that process is people and capability, right? So in your business, you probably have a core capability, some capability that if you didn't have, your business would fall apart, because it's actually the core thing that drives value for you, okay? That you'll have other functions which you need, but are not the core value creation engine. They're not the thing that differentiates you. That's what I mean by core. Now, if we're talking about integrating design, really part of it is, how does my design capability relate to my core capability? How does my design capability relate to the core value, the core way that I create value? Okay? So that's what we're thinking about. Let's say you've got a really good engineering capability. Are you going to use design to inform those engineers on what to build and to point them at the right human problems? That's one thing, inform it. Are you going to use design to translate that technical wizardry into something polished and beautiful and human and all of that stuff? So there's a relationship there. It's not just about design in and of itself. It's a team game. I'll skip that. So here's a couple of stories. So these, I just want to put up front, these stories are circa 2010. This is from my design integration program days, but they're very relevant. So Methven, they make showers. They've been around about 100 years in New Zealand. They used to be quite basic showers. Taps and all that stuff, like you'd find at like Suncorp Stadium in the toilets, like that kind of basic. They had a lot of troubles, and then they went through a program, and they had to look at these questions, and they realized, so if they were to look at showers, nobody in the world is actually looking at the needs of women in a shower, and women actually make the purchase decision. So they went, that's my core end user, women. So how would I, if I were to focus on women, what are the unique needs of women that only we can offer? How would I translate that? And also they looked at their core capability. So these guys are really, really smart with water, those engineers. Probably can't see it very well, but on the left here you've got a conventional shower, on the right you've got a Methven shower. They're really good at basically smashing water together and making that into a satisfying experience while using less water. That's an engineering capability. They use design to better inform how they used that engineering capability and how they translated that into beautiful, not just like, here's the luxury experience, but here's the, essential oil infusions in the water and the place where you put your foot on the thing so you can shave your legs. That, because most showers, I guess, are designed by men, we would never think to do. They did, and people loved it, and they grew like 100 million in 5 years. They're a publicly listed company. This is another example where, so Phil and Ted's, you might know, here's a story about why you don't need to be design-led to really build a good business. So their essential insight was, what if I built a stroller with 3 wheels? It would be really, way more maneuverable and stuff. Okay, but I'm talking about specifically twins, and the one in the back is having a crap time. They can't see anything. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That could be a flaw. Phil and Ted's took the position, I don't care that much. So I'm being they're a little irreverent. It's part of their brand. So one of their early processes with coming up with their brand was, screw the baby, what about me? As a parent, right? And you think about it with Bugaboo and all those guys, all the photography and all the imagery of all of the competitors is always about the baby. Like, look at that fat little cheeks, oh, so cute, la 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 la. And not like the frazzled, like, half suicidal parent that's behind them. So it's like, and the baby doesn't buy this bloody thing anyway, so what am I doing? So that was their core thing, and you can kind of see that. I'm a modern mum. I don't want to be stuck at home in my maid's outfit or whatever from the 50s. I want to be getting out and having a life. I'm a modern dad. It's about me. I'm enlightened and having a peaceful Zen moment over here. So great insight. They built a brand around that. It's really irreverent. People love that. Great brand story. Then they had a relationship with a channel partner. I don't know who it was. Let's pretend it's Bunnings, because I can't think of anything better to say. Let's pretend it's Bunnings. So I've got a really sweet stroller and a really great brand. I have access to Bunnings. You don't, whoever the competitor is. You build other baby things. I don't want you in Bunnings. So what am I going to do? Flood Bunnings with all kinds of other baby stuff. So now they do all kinds of other baby stuff. They do whatever that is. I don't have kids, I'm rubbish at this. And whatever that is about the feeding and the chairs and the sitting. So the point is, did they have some incredible, like, latent or emerging insight to transform into a cot or into a chair or into a tent? No, they didn't. There's no huge product innovation there. There's just a cool brand, and that brand visual language has been applied to, it's probably an okay product. It's not a great product, right? But it served their competitive strategy. They had a commercial objective, which is block the competition from their channel partner. That was the role of design. Did the designers kick up a stink and say, what about the humans, or, I don't know, capitalism is bad or something? Maybe, but they had a job at the end of that conversation. So, I disclaimer, I have no idea. Sorry, Phil and Ted's, if you listen, I have no truthful understanding of what I just imagined. That's funny in my head. So here's Flaik. So we do technology for ski schools in North America. We do hardware with the GPS and the tracking and kids not dying on the mountain. And then also we do management software. So just like management of any other business, whether it's property or any other kind of business you might have, you've got admin functions, management functions. We do that. We just do it for people who like sliding down a mountain. That's what that looks like. So we've been around like 12 years. Here's the decisions that we had to make. Basically, we had the GPS stuff. We had a bunch of good engineers. We had recognition in the market. We had some really early management products that were kind of crap. But we didn't have any competition. And we were at a point where we had to decide what to do next. So, so I was looking at the same kind of stuff. So what is our core capability? Well, it's engineering, but it's quite reactive. It's not really guided very well. It's kind of driven by whatever the customer wants, and sure, we can do that. And then, we had this underutilized strength with real-time data. We know where the instructor and the people are on the mountain at all times. We also have all of the management functions to tell you where all of those instructors, where they got paid, when they worked, who was good, who wasn't good, who had people coming back. So we had all the data, but we weren't doing anything with it. We also, and nobody else was doing anything with it, and that all lined up with the fact that the ski instructors, the ski supervisors and managers were just dealing with piles of paper everywhere and trying to manage by piles of paper and legwork and experience and intuition. So nobody was joining all the dots. We had all the dots, we could join them. So that was how we made our decision. Focus on this niche, ski schools, use our core capability, but inform design, use design to inform that core capability, leverage it, communicate it. So that was our strategy. That's just a repeat. So that was what that looked like. So we're trying to make ski schools simpler. We're trying to give people visibility and tools in real time. Simple management tools, smart data. So that's the design story of Flaik. There's all kinds of other things that we could talk about. I'm just trying to use that as a way of illustrating how you can navigate some of those decisions. Do we have the most beautiful design in the world? No. Have we like cut corners all over the place? Yes. Do our designers sometimes go, man, this sucks, this product. I wish I could do it better. I'm not putting this in my portfolio. Yes. They're sitting up the back. I'm going to dob them in later. But did we ship stuff that people actually really loved and used? Yes. Is it to our high standards as designers, as a high standard design culture? Sometimes no. But these are the realistic trade-offs that you have to make. This is not about dribble design. This is about real design. So I'm going to wrap up there. So I'm just going to skip through, and because I've run out of time here, but this is really the conclusion I'm hoping we're getting to, is that who should lead customer empathy as long as it's lined up with what will actually work for your business. Because if you're prioritizing your customer over you, sooner or later, you're not going to have a job. So that's what I'm hoping we can do, is better manage our design process, better integrate our design strategy, you're never going to get the ego out of the room, but at least acknowledge the ego. Hey, here's the bit where I'm doing the post-it crack addict, here's the bit where Liam's just pulling a tyrant, and make some more progress, and hopefully as a result of all of that, serve the world better, which is what we all aspire to as creatives and innovators anyway. So thank you.
Thanks, Liam. Really, really amazing topic and talk. I've just been monitoring Slido. If you want to hop on again with your phone, sli.do, hashtag ProductTank, and ask some more questions, that'd be fine. But a few did pop up there that I thought were relevant to you. First is, how did we come to have a ski school platform based in sunny, no snow, Brisbane, Australia?
Yeah, the Sunshine State. So I don't have a good answer. I've got a real answer, I guess. I don't. So the story that I heard, I'm 4 years in. The company started 10 years ago. The story I heard was two mates were in a pub, and one of them was a space nerd. He wanted to be an astronaut, wanted to go to space camp. Instead, he was in a pub, and they were arguing about who could ski faster. And being a space nerd, the answer to that is satellites. So I was like, well, if I put a thing on, I'm going to track you, GPS with a satellite, and then we'll know for sure. So then they did that, and that's how it got started. They were like, we're going to tag each other and see who goes faster. That didn't work out. Nobody wants to pay for that. So at some point, our customers told us we need to do safety instead of that. So we pivoted. Yeah.
Awesome. Another question, I think, which is one that only you could answer, is just the comment you had on the ability of universities to produce design talent. If you just want to unpack that for a few more seconds for us, kind of what observations did you base that comment on?
Why do I say that? Because everyone I ever speak to in industry says that. maybe if that's, I don't know if that's coming from a university person, but if it is, maybe you need to speak to some people in industry and find out. Because I've never spoken to an industry person who's gone, shit, these graduates are good. Like, it just doesn't happen. So I'll give you an example. So this is an industrial design example. So, you know, I worked at CMD. I'm not a designer, by the way. I'm a product manager and I'm an advocate for design. I'm not a designer. So CMD, you know, those guys, they're 15 years deep, you know, 20 years experience as an industrial designer. When they were educated, it was a 5-year degree. And they started and they had to learn about material science. They had to learn about, like, you know, engineering. They had to learn about art history. You know, they had to learn about serious, like, science and engineering stuff. It was a real renaissance education. Why? Because you have to turn your Post-it notes into something really complicated to be mass manufactured at scale at a predictable cost. You know, because I'm a nerd, I was watching Elon Musk videos, and, you know, he was talking about when he launched that car, he goes, you know, designing a car is easy. What's hard is the production system that builds that produces that car over and over and over. Getting an industrial designer straight out of school who actually knows how to even use CAD to design something is challenging, because they're all about the first diamond. They're losing their core as designers. They're becoming Post-it note crack addicts, and they're losing the ability to translate. So I think I would generalize that across, but, you know, I actually don't know what it's like for graphic design at the moment, but it used to be print design. It's just all about print and traditional graphic. And so if you're looking for somebody who is more product oriented, more UX and product, they don't have that capability. You know, there's such a divide there.
Yeah. So probably the last question for you is, having come from a design background and then moved into head of product, talk about how you negotiated that transition, and is there anything that you did or didn't do 2 years ago that you're doing now as a head of product?
Yeah. The first answer is poorly. How did I transition poorly? I guess I was fortunate in some ways that I was working in two consultancies that were very product oriented anyway, and neither consultancy at that time employed product managers, but we talked about product management. We talked about product managey things and things that would guide impact, because we wanted to be partners, not just brief takers. We wanted to be partners, not just consultants. So we were talking about data, blah, blah, blah. So I guess I had a head start because I was working with smart consultants. But the transition from consultant to someone accountable is a big one. Everyone wants their opinion to be heard, but nobody wants to be accountable when that decision goes wrong. So that's one thing. Something that I didn't do 2 years ago that I'm doing more of now. I think this is a generalization for Australia. We're way better at building than talking. So we're a really smart country of engineers and people that build stuff. We're not that great at brand, at marketing, at sales, at commercialization. We just kind of think that if we build it, they will come, which is total nonsense. It's total nonsense. So that's part of why I think the Kiwis kick the crap out of us in a manufacturing point of view. They have no domestic market. They do not have the luxury of a 20 million people population that they can just market to in a lazy way because they're just around the corner. Oh, mate, we'll buy it. They have to ship it and be internationally competitive from day one. So they really need to differentiate. They really need to communicate clearly. We don't. We're kind of lazy. We just think, oh, that's a bit of bullshit. Oh, I don't want to be a wanker. I don't want to talk myself up. Yeah, that's why nobody buys your stuff. So I think that's a generalisation of Australian culture that I've observed. It's also a generalisation of me. So, you know, for the first 2 years of Flaik, you know, we had an ambitious product vision, and we really never had many staff. Like, we had a team of 6 at our highest in terms of a product team. So no people, huge ambition. Maybe that was a poor decision to start with. But we spent all of our time, I spent all of my time, and we spent all of our time as a business trying to build great stuff. And cash flow is king. And if you really, I realized at some point that the real issue was no longer the product. The real issue was our pricing. How do we price? How do we package our product? How do we market it? How do we actually, what does the product marketing and sales process look like? Who are we even talking to in that process? Who are the stakeholders in that process? What are their needs? Because all we were focused on was the people that use the product. And the purchase process was entirely different. You know, if I can say one thing, it's don't confuse your customer and your user for your purchase decision maker. Because if you do, you're in for a rough ride. So I spent a lot more time the last year or two focusing on all of that. And I really wish that I had done that a lot earlier. And I would almost start there next time.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Liam, for your talk tonight. I'll ask you to go to the back, and Nick Coster is going to join us in just a minute. And Nick, if you can go to the back and get mic'd up as well. Really, this talk is important because if you look at the top 10 market cap companies globally, most of them are American companies. But I know from having been over there, as you can tell from my accent, a lot of the products that I observed over there don't have great design. Like I think we have amazing design capability here in Australia, and we have what it takes to have one of our companies up there in the top 10. We also have the most mature engineers in the world, according to the Stack Overflow survey that they do every year. So we really have what it takes, and we just need to apply some strategic thinking. So that's why we have these events and unpack these topics. So Nick Coster will be chatting with us for another about 10 minutes. Before I get him up, I'm just going to say farewell to Sydney. Thank you, Sydney, for joining us for this part, and keep going out there and creating products that people love, and enjoy the talk with Asa, and hopefully someone can capture that and share that as well. So Nick Coster's from Sydney, and he is co-founder of an organization called Brainmates, which offers training for product managers and owners, as well as they do the Leading the Product conference, the biggest product conference here in Australia. Their company just turned 15 just the other day, and he co-founded it with his partner, and apparently woke her up the other day singing happy birthday to her, not because it was her birthday, because it was their company's birthday that they co-founded together, and I thought that was very sweet. But obviously a lot of experience in product. He's worked for companies like eBay, Westpac, and a few others. So in total been doing product for over 20 years. So if he is ready, he is welcome. He's still getting mic'd up. While I'm chatting here, I also want to thank Fishburners for hosting us tonight. They're amazing in the support that they provide for the startup community, and I'd encourage you to check them out. If you're thinking about doing a startup, check out Fishburners. They have a really reasonable rate for different types of arrangements, hot desks and things like that. So definitely look them up. And with that, Nick, you got 10 minutes, mate, to give us your thoughts on this very important topic, and there you go.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to try and go back to a slide here, which I thought was awesome. That I use as my backdrop, so I've got something to talk to. So my name is Nick Coster. I'm from a company called Brainmates. We're celebrating our 15th birthday as a company at the moment, so we're pretty excited. But I want to take you back just for a moment to 2004 when we started. So I want you to imagine a world where there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no iPhone, eBay was awesome, there was no Netflix, GPS was with the army, not in the hands of consumers, and Agile was only 3 years old and was unknown to CEOs. Awesome. Okay, product management and product was different back then, and that's when we started. And so it's been a really interesting journey from then to now, sort of starting a product management business in its very early days. So we've kind of got a long-term view of the changing view of product management as it's changed over the years, and the different sort of rise and falls of different I guess, buzzwords, whether it's design-led or service design. A lot of these things are talked about as being this versus that. Is it design-led or is it designer-led, as though they're two opposing forces? And I think one of the things that I'd like to just quickly kind of replay to Liam's great conversation tonight is that all of these skill sets are really important. That if we're coming from a product management or a business perspective, we can't do our jobs without them. Okay, we need service designers if we're designing a service. We need industrial designers if we're designing physical products. They're important things to have. And this double diamond approach is a really great way of identifying some of the key aspects of any product development process. But as Liam also mentioned, there's the front part here, which is looking at the marketplace first. So the very first input point for the double diamond was an insight. But where do the insights come from? It's a bit like where do babies come from? Now, they don't come from the cabbage patch. We have to work hard, often successfully, to achieve that. So we have to try and work out where do these insights come from. So when we look at the end-to-end process, there's identifying your target market, there's identifying the marketplaces you're playing in, there's looking at the competitive strategy and looking for the gaps in the market, the opportunities, and there's a wealth of information there. And so we need product strategy to help with that aspect, or strategic thinking to think about those activities. As we move through the double diamond, it's not just design that's involved, it's customer research, it's people who can interview customers, it's people who can develop insights and try and work out what's worth going for. And forgive me, I wish I did debating at high school because I've got a few scribbled notes here about the conversation. But one of the notes that Liam mentioned, I need a third hand here, is the difference between design and, I think you mentioned, not being commercially driven in the sort of the government role that you're in. And I think this is one of the things that when we think about design kind of versus or compared to a product management function, design is critical to to delivering a great product, but it's not always commercially driven. And so one of the challenges that product people have is we need to be design and customer focused and make sure we're delivering great things, but we also have to pay the bills. We have to work out how is this product going to deliver a great outcome for our customers and deliver a great outcome for the business, because we all like getting paid and so do our shareholders. So that's very much part of the story. Once we have this insight, we actually need to spend just enough time identifying what those problems are. And I think what we see the weakness in many product management organisations or organisations in general, whether they'd call themselves product management or otherwise, is that we rush from an insight and then we rush straight to build. So I'm sure there was one of the variants there that Liam had that represented that. And it's quite a natural behaviour. We think we're onto something and we rush straight to the build piece, and then we go into the second diamond and start trying to build it. Or actually, we go into the fourth triangle and we just start trying to build something without trying to work out what other alternatives there might be. So part of a good product management discipline is to think about the beginning, which is which customers should we care about the most, which marketplaces should we care about the most, and as Liam mentioned, who are the people who are buying the product, who are the people who are using the product, and how do they think differently between them. How do we then identify the problem that we're solving for them? And then once we've identified the problem or problems that are worth solving for the customer and worth solving for the business, we can then work through the process of actually finding a solution. And I think design is a critical part of that. But it's also, there's the flavors of design can be technical design, industrial design, copywriting, legal design, business model design. There's so many different flavors of what goes into a product. Again, when Liam was referring to, forgive me a moment. This is unscripted, so we're giving it the best shot we can. Was referring to pricing and packaging. These are certainly things that I would also incorporate as part of the product. People will buy a product based on the pricing, and they'll choose a product based on the packaging. So these are things that product management thinking also has to encompass. They're not separate to the product, they're actually part of the product because they're part of the product experience. So as we take this story across the wall, we now develop a great product, we've solved an important problem, we've developed something awesome for the business and for the customer. One of the things that often this conversation around design-led or anything-led starts to forget is what happens next. Once we've launched a product into the marketplace, we're not done. Often a project manager is done, a UX person is done, they've finished their work on the particular project or initiative or activity. The sprint is done, we've shipped it, but what happens next? And this is really where there's almost a state of neglect in many cases in the world of product management, where we over-focus on the middle part of this double diamond and we forget on how to continually build the dollars and the love at the other end. How do we manage the life cycle of the product? And I think that's when we think about product management at BrainMates, it's not just ship a product, repeat. It's ship a product and that's day one. After that, that's just like the starting gun has gone off. You're not finished, you've just begun the journey. And so we would start to look at the different life cycle stages throughout the product's journey and see how do we continually create value for the customer and benefits for the business overall. So one of the other things that Liam mentioned was that the leader, so who is leading these things? So again, when we talk about led by somebody, Liam mentioned that the leader is the role with the greatest worldview. Now it would be nice, or maybe it wouldn't be nice, if the CEO was involved in every product decision, because technically they are the person or the role with the greatest worldview. But I think that's impossible, and it's actually not desirable because they've got better things to do, like run a company. So that role to run the product, to have the maximum worldview, to have an understanding of the marketplace, the customers, the competitors, the regulatory or legal environment that you're working in, that mantle essentially falls to the product management function in an organization. So since 2004, we've seen the role of product really shift from being, as the name implies, a management function, which is, here is your product, don't fuck it up, okay? So then the next generation of product has been, actually, this product thing is kind of important. It used to be in 2004 that you could market your way out of a bad product. You could out-technology the competitors. But as we had the change as things like Twitter and Facebook and other sort of the two-way web started to evolve, something important happened with product management, which is it became really vital to actually create good products. Okay? Because now the customers were in charge. Before, the marketing teams were in charge, so you could have a marketing-led organization that could just push and spend more money and be successful. Or a brand-led one, which you could almost obfuscate the gaps in the product in the marketplace. But customers can now talk to each other. So with these social media tools, it's not just about being friends and liking people and giving thumbs up and what have you. It is actually about people being able to communicate whether a product is good or not. And I think that was one of the key inflection points that ranging from around about 2006 to around 2010, as Facebook, Twitter and other things came on board, and then the ability to have all of that in your pocket with the iPhone, the major shift has taken place around the world. And you'll see that the organizations that are doing the best job are the organizations that understand their customers better than anybody else, that understand that functional is good, but better design is better. So making things both a joy to use as well as functionally useful is important. And that the role of product management, working with all of these different roles within the organization, is now critical. It's no longer a management role that just makes sure and tracks metrics and reports back. It's actually a really important leadership role within the business that we kind of playfully call it the mini CEO. And in some respects it is. It's the mini business leader for the product. It doesn't necessarily have organizational authority, but it's one of the most important roles in a modern organization to create competitive advantage, revenue for the business, and also joyous customers. So that's probably about as much as I have in my ramble in my head from the feedback we've had from Liam. So I really want to thank him for a great talk, but I really want to highlight the excitement that I have for the growing world of product management. It's awesome to see communities like this, spawning and growing that we've sort of seen over the last 15 years. And it's very exciting to see people deliberately trying to become product managers rather than just being stuck in the room as the last person standing. Thank you very much.
So I actually have a couple of questions for you as well. Do you also teach juggling?
I do teach juggling. We use it as a bit of a metaphor in the training courses. So we use it for a couple of reasons. And by the way, I'm not a very good juggler, but I'm not terrible at it. But I'm not going to be joining the circus. I've got a product job to do. We use it to visualize and make it physical, the concept of prioritization. So one of the things that we see product people are really good at is saying, yes, I can, but you can't. Not because you can't do any one thing, but you can't do all of the things you promised to do because you've said yes to too many people. So one of the things we use juggling for is to make that physical. Like we can learn to juggle 1 ball, that's not too hard. Juggling 2 requires a little bit of practice. Juggling 3 is feasible, juggling 4 starts to get messy pretty quickly. And if you ever looked at your task list and thought, yeah, I can do all this, and you start doing a little bit of everything, what you're really doing is a whole lot of nothing. So the practice of juggling is the metaphor for saying, what are the top 3 things you're going to do? Then do them, finish them, and then pick up another 3 things and get them done. So it's an agile practice in its own way to say, do it, ship it, repeat. Don't do a little bit, 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 and never ship anything, repeat. Okay, which is an important way of thinking.
I learned that when we took our team down to Brainmates training, and it was a lot of fun to do that. One other question that I spotted on Slido, which I think maybe you can help with, is how does a company go about actually picking who their user is?
Step 1, have a guess. A lot of people spend a lot of time and money trying to do heaps and heaps of research, trying to guess who their customer is. If it's a startup environment, it's probably you. And that's not a bad thing, it means you're scratching your own itch. But if you're the only person with that itch, it's probably not going to scale terribly well. If it's not for you, if you're for a large corporation, then have a guess rather than doing large, expensive research for it. That's fine, but it probably won't give you a good answer anyway. Take a guess and then go and find that customer. If you can't find that customer, then chances are you're wrong with your first guess, but that's okay. In fact, being a product manager is learning to be wrong a lot and learning throughout the process and being okay with that learning throughout the process. So once you've learned that you got it wrong the first time, then it's pretty cheap to go and speak to another person who might be a little bit like that first person and see if you start to gather any insights. It sounds like a bit of a shotgun approach, but if you're responsible for a product in the first place, chances are you have a sort of a range of possibilities that are likely, and you can usually find a customer that maps to one of those. So using a sort of an educated guess as a starting point, I find is one of the fastest ways to go out and have an excuse to go and talk to a customer rather than waiting for the market research team to come back with a big report that says, maybe it could be these people. You've just shortcut the whole process.
Awesome, thanks, Nick. I'll ask you to go to the back, and Jason, if you want to roll back there as well and get mic'd up. Thank you very much. Let's give Nick another hand. So next up is Jason Turnbull, and he is a product consultant also and offers leadership and transformation workshops, which are surprisingly important. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. Basically, the way I describe product management to people is I use the concept of the product triangle. So if you imagine a triangle, I don't have one up on screen here, but at the very top you've got the business and the leadership and the strategy and the mission and all of that. Okay, on the lower left corner, perhaps you've got the engineers and the technology. And in the lower right-hand corner, you've got all the customers and their needs, right? So the product manager basically sits right in the middle of that. What I've found particularly through the consulting is that with the product manager's ability to connect with the engineering team and to connect with the customer, that's in pretty good shape. But here in Australia, I feel that the disconnect that happens between leadership in companies and the product manager, there's a bit of a dotted line I draw there. There's a bit of a disconnect and a misalignment that makes it challenging for product people and product designers to get that alignment and to manage up. So Jason did one of these. He modeled a workshop with us at one of our actual ProductTank workshops that we run, that Anthony actually heads those up. Yeah, doing a great job. And the workshops are just an opportunity for us to come together as a community. We do them over at ThoughtWorks. It's a smaller space. It's very hands-on. It's a bit more learning and practical, and they're going extremely well. But it was just amazing sort of what we unlocked through those mechanisms in terms of using actual tools to get alignment. So with that long extended introduction, I'm going to hand over to Jason, who's going to comment for another 10 minutes.
Yep.
And it's up to you however you want to run that. I know you've been looking at the Slido stuff.
Yeah.
So here you go.
All right, awesome. All right, thanks for having me. Just give you a little bit of insight, background for myself. I'm actually in the process of rolling out a coaching business soon. So it's in the collaborative leadership space. So if anyone's interested in that space, definitely reach out. Hit me up on LinkedIn. You'll probably see some announcement in the next couple of weeks. My background, I sort of fell into tech. I was actually an environmental engineer prior, and I actually ended up in video games. So I started in video games as a customer advocate, and then quickly moved into a design role, senior design role. I actually started in QA, then project manager, producer, went to other companies, worked on Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride, those sort of products at other companies. And probably the big thing is then going into product management and then a head of product role. So pretty much going all the way through, but probably the common denominator was coming into companies that were a real mess and going through transformation and having a lot of problems. And me being the guy, I'm not too fussed if I stay or go, I'll just rock the boat and see what I can do. And it usually worked out quite well. The only problem was once everything was fixed, it was a matter of, okay, what next? And it's, other people are better off to keep going with that. So what I want to do is, just with my unique insights, so it's a little bit different. I probably got 1 year in the enterprise space in project management software, a lot of commonalities. And probably another big one for me is sport coaching. I saw a lot of parallels between coaching a team and in that sports environment and also in a technical space. So first question, I'm going to try and rattle through as many of these as I can. What was the biggest challenge moving from design role into head of product? So that was something that I had to face. I think the biggest challenge going from design to head of product, or just design to product management, is you really have to leave the solution space. And that's really hard. If you're a designer and you love the solution space, it's a very, very hard thing to transition to product management and allow other people to do that, especially when you think they're not doing it as well as you would have done it. And that's very, very hard. And you have to let those people fail and learn and equip them with the best stuff you can. Here's a competitor analysis. This is probably how I would do it, but you're the guy. Let them do it. So that's probably the big one. Head of product, it's just a step away from that. So I think the transition's more from design to product management. And there's a lot of literature around, who owns the problem, who owns the solution. But in my opinion, you own the problem if you're a product manager, and you let the designer own the solution. So that's probably the big one for that question. Who should participate in building the competitor strategy? So for me, the big one there is you have to remember where you're at. So companies will scale. They'll scale from a small founding team, 3 to 5 people, and then they'll grow. They'll quickly grow to a cross-functional team, maybe 15 people. They'll then grow to multiple cross-functional teams. They'll then go, what the hell, we grew too quick, we need to get rid of half the people, and how do we restructure? Or they're a very mature company and it's like, oh, what worked 20 years ago isn't working now. So ideally what I find, because I really push the collaborative approach, you want a small group. So you're always looking at 5 to 7 people with as different, they bring lots of different opinions to the table. So you're always looking for those key 5 to 7 people. You don't want it too big, you don't want it too small. So you're always looking at that. So if it's a starting team, it's your starting team, it's everybody in that team. Everyone in that startup team needs to understand the competitor strategy. They need to have that deep empathy of what we're doing, how we are different to our competitors. As you start to scale and you're getting that cross-functional team, you have a marketing arm, you have a customer support, sales, you probably have the heads of all those departments. And that transition's hard because the core team who are used to being part of all those meetings are now going, what happened to me? I love being part of that stuff. And you just got to prep them for that transition. So like I said, always that 5 to 7, different opinions, depends where you're at in that, how big are we and where are we at. What experience have you had in changing culture? changing culture to change mindset, and have you worked with management buried in the belief that tech will solve everything? Of course. Like, that is the norm, I think, in our industry, especially when I started. When I started, tech was everything. I remember my first day at a game studio. I said hello to one of the senior tech guys. I said, "Oh, how are you going?" And he said, "How the hell would I know?" That's using nice language. And I'm QA. I'm a customer advocate. You mean nothing. It's all about engineering. It's all about programming. But that's changed a lot from 15 years ago to now. There's a big, big change there. But definitely what I find in most organizations, and what I've had a lot of success helping them with, is the concept of value disciplines. It was something I got exposed to back in 2005, previous boss, which virtually says, for you to win, you have to follow one of three playbooks. You're either first to market, solving a similar problem. Usually the human problems are always the same, but you're leveraging new technology, new ways. You're either first to market doing that, or you're fast following. And you're either fast following on price or a total solution, a custom total solution. So you really need to work with the company founder and owner to go, look, you're probably not aware of this, but when you started, you had a bunch of designers who founded the company, and it was very design-led, and we started to find product market fit. And guess what? It was because you were design-oriented. You were in that first to market, or maybe a value for money. You just copied someone else but did it better. So it's really getting a sense of, like, what I find is to help them recognize that. And typically what they've done is they've scaled too quick. They've just gone, oh, we don't know what we used to be. We got all this money, we found product market fit. Oh, I think we should have one of them, and we should have a team of that, and we should do this, and we should do that. And oh my gosh, and there has been times in the past I've just gone, look, get rid of half your staff and you'll actually be generating more revenue than before. And people, oh, that's crazy. But it always happens. There's the excessive waste from not knowing which way to grow and who to hire and how to scale is a real killer. So what I find with that is, and you're not trying to be a smart ass, but you're just saying, look, you need to identify which one of these you are. I think you're this. Right now you have a head of engineering that obviously just wants it all to be about engineering. You've got a head of agile transformation. It's all about project management and efficiency. You've got a head of design. It's all about design. And what the value discipline model says is we have to be competent at 2 and market leader at 1. If we're the custom solution guys, we have to be best at that. We know the customer best. And what I find is, because people are like, oh, but can't we be all 3? Well, I need to promote someone to product management. Where do I promote from? Customer frontline, customer support, or sales, or training? Do I promote someone from engineering? Do I promote someone from design? Depends which one of those you are. So it's really, really important to know that, make the business aware of that, and you can pretty much predict the future. If we keep going this way, that's what's going to happen. And when those things start to happen, they'll go, okay, yeah, I think you're onto something. And you're like, yeah, I told you a year ago, but at least we know now. So I think that's probably the best way to do transformation. Where are we? All right, same question. Tools versus processes versus principles. How would you recommend a graduate to prioritize them? I think the whole thing with graduate and design, I think one of the key things is Japan, in games, the Japanese are the best. We always go, oh, they treat it like an art, a zen, they do it best. And they have a rule, quite a few companies there, that design is not an entry level job. You must start somewhere else. Design is a leadership job. And we will train you. We're going to invest a lot of time in training you once we identify you're the right sort of person, and we will grow that. So what I've typically found is in Australia, we don't have that sort of rule. People can go straight from design, they come in, but they struggle because it is a leadership role. And in the last job, we'd call them small product owners. They'd work on the backlog. Once the team got too big, they'd be working on the backlog, they'd be doing high-level design. In games, you have lots of different designers, lots of different design types. But the key thing there is, I would say, for graduates, especially if you're in that design space, know your tools. Tools always is handy. As long as you're using the best practice tools, what's going on, that's always going to do well for you. That's probably one thing I didn't get the opportunity to do, because I came in as a customer advocate and didn't have that technical background. So you're trying to learn tools as do the work, and it just gets really tough. So if you've got the tools, I'd say that's number one. In terms of process, I think one of the big problems we have with process is everyone just grabs different frameworks and different processes and just utilizes them blindly. But the key thing is frameworks and processes really help you make the transition. If we're terrible with Agile, we grab Scrum and we follow it exactly by the book. And then we make really good transition. We get better, quicker. But at some stage you've got to go, but we need to customize that for our organization. So I think when it comes to processes, I'd encourage graduates, don't get too caught up, because it'll be this framework and process this year and there'll be some other thing next year. If you really reverse engineering and deconstruct them, they have a lot of commonalities. And everyone wants to brand their process and their framework so they can make a business around it. So I think it's just really important to, probably for a graduate, don't get caught up in the process and knowing all the steps of the process. Know your tools. I think principles are important because that's the key thing. And I'm seeing more and more of that now, the concept of principles. Principles are these timeless things that, okay, you want to be a designer. The modern day designer, the principles are this. You're collaborative, you are a servant leader. Understanding these principles, I think, are really, really key. So on that one there, I'd encourage a graduate, know your tools, understand the principles of design, and wait for your chance. Like, don't expect, I'm going to get in there straight away and tell everyone what to do. That's probably the biggest mistake I find with a lot of graduate designers. They just, I just want to do what I want to do. You really, there was a book, 21st Century Game Design, I picked up probably 10 years ago. And what they said is the design role is now design coordinator, design manager. You're not the vision holder anymore. And in games is a lot harder because everyone in games loves games. They take big pay cuts because they want to build their game, what's in their head. And the designers, the lead designers are the rock stars. They're that's so-and-so. So if you go in with sort of that mentality, it's very hit and miss. And big budget now, you could have that one big hit, but you're going to have 9 fails. If you follow a more collaborative approach, more strategic approach, you're going to have 8 profitable games, 2 fails. And that's just the world, I think, that we're in now. So in terms of, second last question, user-focused versus delivery capability, how do they affect and influence one another? I'm probably going to interpret that one as on the diamond, one on the other. One thing I found really interesting with looking at this talk, and I hadn't seen double diamond before, is I know what I expect. Like if we just say that's man hours, each of those areas colored in as man hours, in my mind I'm thinking start of project, what does that look like? It's big on that side. It's bigger on that side. As we start to transition, we're going from that problem solution fit, we sort of identified what the problem space is, the market opportunity is, we're doing a lot of experiments, a lot of throwaway work. We're really on that side. But as we start to get confidence, we know the problem really well now. We actually know what the solution is now. It switches to that side. I'll almost go, it's that, midway through the project, it's sort of even. Towards the end of the project, it's really shifting the weight onto that side. So I think that's probably how I'm interpreting that question. And last one, what advice do you have for companies that don't have enough focus on customer empathy? I think the big one again is that value discipline. You need to know what sort of company type you are. If you fast follow, and I've worked with a lot of guys from China, they fast follow. Do they need customer empathy? No. They're in, they make it cheap, they get it out, they make a heap of money, get what they need, sunset the project. It's a successful model. But if you're customer centric, it's all about knowing the customer, thinking, that service model. It's not a product anymore, it's a service I'm giving over many, many, many years. And I'm trying to address as many different, for a video game player, you want to beat up on the AI and feel good about yourself because life's a bit dull. Okay, we'll give you that. Oh, you're getting good at that now. You want to compare with other people. Oh, we'll give you multiplayer. Oh, you want to be part of a community. Oh, we'll give you clans and we'll keep growing with you to give you that thing. But if you're not, if you're just, we're going to fast follow on value for money then not. So I think you just need to know which one you are. And again, take care. It's really important to know what sort of company you are and take care with just, that's the new framework. That's the best practice thing. Oh, that company being successful, they do that. We should do that. It's very, very dangerous. Yeah? And I think that's it. All right.
Thanks, Jason. So thank you everyone for coming out tonight, joining us. We're just on 8 o'clock, so it's respectful of everyone's time, get everyone home and in bed and all that. Melbourne also signing off from where you are. They're being hosted out of PEXA. Thanks for joining us. And I just also want to encourage you to hop on our Slack channel. Just Google Mind the Product Slack and join the Brisbane channel and join the conversation. Keep this topic going. Keep talking about it, and that's our goal, to create the discussion around this topic. Feel free to hang out. If I could ask everyone to just leave through the front door, because we've got some cables and chaos in the back there, and enjoy some further chats. Thank you.